the right height. Problem solved. So guys, I got a new shirt. But that's not what we're here to talk about. I'm gonna wait till a few of you guys show up and hopefully somebody can tell me if the audio is good or not. So hopefully somebody shows up. We're gonna talk about some EDC items, and there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that gets added to people's EDC. And before we do that, I wanted to show you guys something. There's a little maintenance tool that I use a lot of times on knives, and it's gonna be one. Hey, Bladed Ginger, what's up, buddy? Oh, let me set the comments to all messages. That way we get everybody. How's the audio? Have we got the good audio if I get up and move around and stuff like that? Or am I using the actual microphone on the device? I think I'm gonna have to stand up for this. Mainly because I don't feel like sitting down. Audio's good. So there's 6 people here. So there's a lot of stuff that everybody carries audio. Yeah, with the blue flannel. I got this as a gift because one of my friends saw a bunch of my videos and heard and knew that I bought 3 of these. So now I have a blue one to throw in the mix. Plus, I have a different flannel. I'll show you later. You guys have seen it. I have like a brown, thinner checker flannel. At any rate, we're not here to talk about my flannel shirt. We're talking about EDC items. And there are a lot of EDC items. Where'd I put that? There's a lot of EDC items that people carry that just absolutely 100% make sense. Now, you guys know I'm kind of an EDC minimalist because I'm a country boy and I used to spend a lot of time outside of that, out on the farm. When you got too much stuff, it just becomes unwieldy, and you just it actually is uncomfortable to carry too much stuff. My buddy Tino, he only carries a couple things, but my buddy Nico, as you guys have seen in numerous videos, The Hobbit, has been pocket checked at knife shows with upwards of 15 or 20 knives on him at any given time. I'm not that guy. I typically will have maybe 2 knives in my pocket. I almost always have 2 knives in my pocket. And a lot of times I'll have 3. I mean, it's a guarantee I'm gonna have 2 knives in my pocket every day. I'm gonna have one in the front, which I just took it out, is gonna be this one in the front right now because I just got this. It's still in the review process, but this is mine. And I'm carrying this one. But earlier today, I was carrying this one and my Microtech Amphibian. So that's usually that and a flashlight. That's what I got. But there are other things that I do carry from time to time. But there's a lot of stuff out there. But I wanted to show you guys this handy little maintenance tool. A lot of people spend a lot of money. See these? These are cheap. And I guarantee you probably have a bag of these somewhere in your house. Little bits of dirt and stuff that are in. And I know this lighting isn't optimal. I apologize, guys. But we're just doing a live. I don't have front-facing lights in the studio for this purpose. I have lights that shine down and lights that shine behind, but nothing that shines in my face except for a shop light that is above the TV on the wall behind you. But at any rate, a lot of times you'll want to clean out little areas on your knife, and some people go and get expensive kits of, as a matter of fact, I have one here, I believe, these kits of these electronic cleaning swabs and things like that, which do come in handy. Not gonna lie, I've got another pack of these I haven't even opened yet. They do come in handy for cleaning out little areas. But a lot of times they're too soft because they got a sponge tip on them, almost like a Q-tip kind of thing. The back side of these is perfect for getting down in little areas and picking out little pieces of grit and grime and things that might be stuck in your knife. And the nice thing is, you don't need this end of it. There you go. One of the best little maintenance tools, and the nice thing about it is, even if you have some of these used ones, I used to keep a bowl of just these ends on the workbench because no one in my house uses this part. We have toothpicks. But we do use the floss part. Now, that's a brand new one. There's another brand new one. I just brought these to show you other things. Q-tips, awesome, awesome, awesome for maintenance. There's usually 2 or 3 dirty looking Q-tips on my workbench because I use it to clean out little areas of the knife before a video so that you don't see a bunch of lint and gunk and stuff down in those pockets. Anyway, those aren't EDC items. EDC items, everyday carry items. Typically, I carry a knife. And I took it out of my pocket, a flashlight. I have several little flashlights. Knives and flashlights go hand in hand. I didn't used to carry. I used to only EDC a knife. There's things that I've added to my everyday carry that I never did before. Before I started hanging out with my group of friends that I have now that you guys see that are like my buddy Tino, we went to his house and looked at his, oh, you ordered a Sweeney Mars carbon fiber. Okay, cool. Ron Dobbins, how's your day going? It's going all right. It'd be better if I'd get a call back on any of these jobs I applied for. But before I met Nico and Tino, like I said, you've met The Hobbit and you've seen Tino when we did the $60,000 knife collection. That's only his folding knives. He has almost that much tied up in other expensive fixed blades and things like that. He has 3 custom knives that I made for him. At any rate, 14 of you guys here, only 4 likes. Please double tap the screen and drop a like. I started hanging out with Nico and Tino, and about the time we started hanging out, Mass Drop was a thing, and these flashlights came out on Mass Drop. And Nico already had one, and I got myself one. And he was like, no, it's really cool to have a little flashlight. And I did start borrowing his when we close up the shop after hours at nighttime and things like that. And I saw how cool it was to have a little flashlight. And I was like, you know what? I need to get one. So when Mass Drop re-released them, I bought one for me, I bought one for my daughter, and I bought one for my wife. There are 3 of these around the house. This one's my daughter's, this one's mine. And these were great. They're just a little AAA flashlight. Just one single AAA flashlight in here, or single AAA in this, and they last forever. This is probably one of the best lasting little flashlights. This is a battery I put in this. When I bought the flashlight, this one my daughter used a lot because it was fun to play with, and I got it for her when she was little. I got this probably 10 years ago when she was about 6 or 7, maybe 8. But she would, it was fun. She could play in her room and she'd have her little flashlight and stuff like that. You remember when we were kids? But I started carrying a flashlight, and then it became something that was in my pocket every day. And I mean every day. It is never, unless I'm like in my pajamas and I just don't have a pocket for it, this flashlight is in my pocket every day. This is the Arcfeld UV. Now, people are like, what do you need a UV light for? UV lights come in really handy. It's easy to find things. Things do fluoresce that you wouldn't expect. Some knives have things. And there's fun things you can do with it. Like I had a company send me a couple of rubies. They thought maybe I could use them in a video to like hone an edge, but they didn't work out for that. But they did, they sent them to me. And you can fluoresce things that you wouldn't expect. But having a flashlight is great, because how many times have you dropped something in your car at night and tried to look for it and tried to use the crappy flash for your phone to do it? Carry a flashlight. They don't take up that much space. This Arcfeld is great. Hey, what's up, Rickard? Guys, please double tap the screen. 17 of you, only 6 likes. I've got a small one I keep in my work bag. Mine is a lithium cell light that I was given at SHOT Show. The guy gave it to me. Gave me a bunch of flashlights for helping his booth. Yeah, this one is rechargeable. It's magnetically rechargeable. Battery is in here. It is a lithium ion battery, and this thing's great. We'll get to that, Ron. You got to stick around a little bit. That's in the second segment of things that you probably don't fucking need. But a flashlight is an item that I will never be without. I won't, because the fact is, it's always great to have a flashlight. And then I recommend this one for hunters, especially bow hunters. Do you guys know, I don't have any arrows here, but arrows, hunting arrows, have a little knock on the back, and they are done in the same plastic as this, the fluorescent plastic. And if you're hunting and you're looking for your arrow that happened to go through your prey, or you missed and you want to recover your arrow, blacklight. It also is good for finding blood in the grass if you're tracking an animal. Well, that's good for you, but don't say offensive things that are going to upset other people in the comments section. That's why there are things that are held. No politics, no religion, no offensive comments towards other people. This is a fun place, not a place where you get to be a dick. That's my job. Anyway, carrying a flashlight, great thing to have. It's a great thing to have if you're out in the woods. It's always optimal to have lights. Like that, see? And then I just escort you from the chat forever. So this is one of those things that I recommend for a lot of hunters and things like that that you put out that you would carry. And so having a light in your pocket is always great. I can't think of a day that I haven't used my flashlight. Going for a walk and things like that. Sorry about that. I live out here in the area that we're at. There's not a lot of street lights. There really isn't. There's one here. There's one all the way down on the back side of this like roundabout area, the back street. There's none. And so when you take your dog for a walk, especially growing up in the country, never once did I ever get sprayed by a skunk. I've lived in San Diego since 2006, and I've gotten sprayed by skunks 3 separate times. If you're taking your dog for a walk, he can't tell the difference between a skunk and a cat at night, but you can if you've got your light and you're flashing it. So it's just one of those things. It's nice to have on dark areas, especially one of the big things. I take apart knives. You guys have seen me do it on videos. You drop parts, and you drop parts on the floor, and they, for some reason, always roll someplace that is the darkest part of your shop. Flashlight. And it's nice to just be able to pull one out of your pocket. Knives, I mean, it goes without saying that you're going to carry a knife. Carrying a knife is probably the best tool you can have for anything. I can't think of a tool that I use more than my knives. For me, the UV arc felt is dangerously bright. I have poor vision and don't need it to get any worse. I don't use the UV. The nice thing about this is if it's too bright, you can set it for what's called moonlight mode, and that's just barely visible. Like it's great for just if you're trying to like walk through the house and maybe coming into the bedroom and you're looking for something and your wife's asleep, or your significant other or your husband, you've got a flashlight that you can shine on it. So you've got the variable settings, which is the nice thing about it. You've got multiple settings, so it does come in handy. So just any flashlight. Any flashlight is going to do you well. Like I said, knives, carrying knives is going to be an everyday thing. Now, I do know a lot of people carry a multi-tool. I also have a preferred multi-tool. I do. My most highly recommended multi-tool is a Victorinox Swiss Army knife Tinker. Or I think this is the Officer. The Tinker is smaller. I can't remember. I have had more of these than any other knife. I currently own 4 of these in different configurations, including this large one that does go in my pack if I'm going camping because it has some things in it that I would want for camping. A Swiss Army knife is probably the best all-around multi-tool you can get. I don't like a Leatherman. I don't like those multi-tools. I think that they're, because I'll tell you what, I cannot, in my honestly in my brain, I cannot ever think of a time that I've been out somewhere and needed to use a multi-tool. Screwdriver, pliers. Pliers is never one, right? I can never think of a time where I thought to myself, I'm glad I brought this because I need a fucking pair of pliers. Anytime I've ever been anywhere that I needed a pair of pliers, I had a pair of pliers somewhere else. I've never been out in the woods or someplace or working on something or just trying to tighten something up and thought to myself, I need a pair of pliers. Swiss Army knife has always been my go-to. I just thought the arc fill doesn't have UV adjustments, just normal flashlight. It doesn't. It only has one setting for the UV. but the UV isn't that bright, and I'm not shining it in my own eyes. I'm not shining it on my face. It just has either white light or UV. So I will tell you, it does have enough UV to it that you can feel heat coming off of it. So it is a pretty powerful emitter for the UV. But yeah, I've never been out anywhere where I thought I need a pair of pliers. Never once have I thought. Never once have I thought that. In the entire time I've been carrying things that were considered EDC items, these never made sense to me. I know for some people it does, but you know what does make sense to me? A notebook and a pen. This is I think these are I think this is the Scout books. This came from, I'm trying to find it here. This came from a friend of mine. This is a Scout book. Yeah, so this is a Scout book. They're great to have. They've got a little, I don't know how, if you guys can see it. Let's see here. Let's turn this around so you guys can see it. So on it, it has almost like a graph paper set up on here so that you can stay within, like size things like that. It's like having lines on a paper, but it allows you to have a little notebook. It is always nice to have a little notebook and a pen, especially if you're a content creator. If you're a content creator, having, well, hey buddy, when did you come out here? The dog's out here behind me. Having a notebook in your pocket so you can write down things. If you need to go someplace and you need to get a couple things, it's always good. I'm 50. I have noticed that I forget things. I will go someplace to purchase something, and forget half the items I went for. I don't have the memory I did when I was in my 30s. I'm in my 50s. Having a little notebook and a pen is great. I did carry one. I was in the military because you could write down coordinates and radio frequencies, and you could do sketches of gun emplacements and things like that, and then come back and do your range card and things like that. All those things come in really handy, and I started carrying a notebook again. Just put it in your pocket. If you're going somewhere, put it in your bag. Typically this stays somewhere close, and if I'm going somewhere where I need like the list, if I've got like a list of stuff that I'm going to do, I'll toss my pen in my pocket, and I will put this in my hip pocket with my phone, and that way I've got my list. So it's a great little combination. Now, I don't recommend expensive pens. This is a really good pen. My daughter loves these. They're laying around the house. We have a bunch of them. These are Pentel gel pens with a roller ball. We've got probably 40 of these. She uses them for taking notes at college and things like that. So they're all over her room. My wife uses them and I use them. So it doesn't make sense for me to buy an expensive pen. If you like expensive pens, that's fine. I don't think they make any sense. So now I'm going to go on a tirade. If you buy a $500 pen, I am going to look at you disapprovingly, because that makes zero sense. And people are like, no, these pens, they're great, they're awesome. I get it. There's hobbies and things like that that are out there. However, a $500 or $600 pen, I don't leave knives lay around. Like, I don't leave a knife lay on the counter at the bank. Do you know how many times I've left a fucking pen lay on the counter at a bank? Damn near every time I ever went and signed anything at the bank. That's why I don't take a pen to the bank, because I know I'm going to leave it there, and I use the pens that they have. Fisher Space Pen and things like that. And I'm going to tell you why I think these pens are ridiculous. When you buy those expensive pens, they're only as good as the refill you put in them. I have not found a pen that writes better than this. This is $1.50 maybe for these pens. I don't know. My wife buys them on Amazon. I don't know. But I do know that these write better than any of those fucking $500 or $600 pens any of my friends have ever handed me. If you really want a nice pen, get a Cross that's going to cost you maybe $30, $40 with this. It's a 30. There you go. Hang on. Jump. No. No. Go in the house. Jump. House. House. In the house. Hey. I got neighbors' dogs. Chunk. No. No. No, you can't play. Come on, Chunk, I'm doing a live feed. Get in the house. Please, go in the house. In the house. He doesn't understand. He doesn't understand. He's, Chunk, no! Get in the house. Come. Get in the house. He just ran out in the street. No. Stay. Oh, sorry. He wanted to play with the little dogs. Sorry, I was probably loud. I yelled. I forgot I had the microphone on. Yeah, if you're spending more than $30 on a pen, I think it's a waste. Especially as I had to chase my dog out into the street. Especially the fact that I leave pins lay everywhere. This is probably the 5th one of these that I've lost in like a week. Yeah, Pupper Zoomies. He's all excited. He was sick, so he wasn't able to do anything for a while. Jesus, I had to chase him all the way out there. I'm fat and old. I'm 50 years old, and I had to chase my dog down the street. So those are some items that I think do make sense, except for this. Never once have I thought I need a pair of pliers when it comes to a Leatherman. Get in the house. House. Get in the house. Sometimes they're worse than kids. But yeah, an expensive pen, no. A pen and a notebook, absolutely. The other thing this comes in handy for, if you're going out in the woods or if you're going camping, mark a location and draw yourself like a little map to find your camping spot in an area. Like just some general like landmarks and things like that, where you can write this and then you just throw it in your pack, and then when you come back and you're looking for your campsite, you write down some landmarks. Maybe do a small sketch. Things like that. There are some other items that I carry occasionally that are EDC. How's the shoulder? It's still there. I got an MRI. I have to call and schedule my MRI today. So we'll talk about that a little bit later when we get into the off-topic things. Pry bar. I have found that I definitely enjoy having a pry bar. I don't carry it every day. So when we talk about everyday carry, it's kind of a misnomer because I don't carry the same thing every day. I carry a flashlight, I carry a knife, probably more than 2 knives because, well, I'm a knife reviewer, so I carry the knives I am reviewing along with knives that I'm using for utilitarian things. But a pry bar comes in incredibly handy. This is one that has got a nice pocket clip on it. It's got a Lynch clip on it that you can absolutely carry it. Audi, what, an A8, I don't know. I'm not that big into cars. Carrying a pry bar does come in handy. There are so many times I have used this to pop something open, to pry something out of place. It works perfectly as a Phillips head screwdriver. It's got a bottle opener on it. I don't drink that much these days. I probably haven't had 3 beers in the last month. But this is a very handy little tool. Scraping something, you know, any of these little things. This is one that was made by Cerberus Knives. I haven't heard anything from Cerberus Knives. I don't know if he's still in business anymore. I don't know if he even makes anything anymore, but these are great. If you can find one of these, they're great. And the nice thing about them too is if you're looking for it at night, and we will do this with the UV part of this. I don't know how well you're gonna be able to see it, but that glows in the dark. So you can find this on your bedstand, right? This also glows in the dark. It's got a tritium vial. You don't even have to charge this up. So you can find it. Nice thing about this one, if you want to take the pocket clip off, put it on your keychain, you can. The pocket clip is removable. It's just a single screw Lynch clip. It's a titanium one that's purple to be the thing. It's milled. It's really attractive, but it's done in 3V steel. It is almost indestructible. And like I said, if you don't want the pocket clip on it, you just put it on a keychain, put it in your pocket. Here is another little one. I have several pry bars. I do like these things. This is one that was done by bladewx.com. And you can put this on your pocket, and it's got same general thing, a little pry bar. It looks like this. You can pull. I used this. I had done some ghetto soundproofing in the studio at one point, and I had egg crates clear out to almost to that, to the garage door opener. And they were on the wall behind. Well, they were all in with like round-headed push pins, basically nails. These, I absolutely used this to pop those out and put them in the container so we could reuse them. This was a great tool for that. I also have got the Enigma multi-tool, which is a pry bar. This is a titanium one. It's got a small edge here that you can use for, it's not sharp, it's all titanium. It's not very sharp, but you can use it, push hard, and you can cut packages and things with it. It's great for use on things that you don't want to scratch because it is titanium, so it won't scratch. It's softer than steel. It also has got one of the best set of pliers that I have around the house. This is the best pair of pliers in the house. Till the first time I drop them on the floor and then they're screwed, but I've not dropped these. I'm really careful. But having been a knife maker and doing things with knives and cutting metal, you get little pieces of metal in your finger. Perfect, perfect tool. Nose hairs, you know, just little things, guy things. This is a guy pair of pliers. This is like the man's pair of pliers. And they're great. It also has got some little hex heads built into it, and you can actually put, grab one here if you want to, put one of these in it from this side, and you can use it as a bit driver. So if you have this in your pouch, the downside, this one does not have, this does not have a way to carry it in your pocket. But if you've got this in your kit with some other stuff, like a little set of drivers, if your pivot comes loose on your knife, you've got a bit driver. Just a handy little thing to have. I use it predominantly for taking apart knives. When I took apart this knife the first time, it was a bit tight to try and get the scales off. When you guys saw me do it live in the video on the live feed, it wasn't as difficult because usually that first time that you take a knife apart is going to be the most difficult. But this knife, oh, there it is. This knife right here, every time, it's the way that the parts are shouldered and stuff like that. Every time I use this because it's not going to screw up and scratch and bend things. So it's always really, really nice to have. But there are some EDC items that don't make any sense to me. Like I said, expensive pins. If you're paying more than like $100, if you're paying more than $30 for an ink pen, oh yeah, this is the Kunwu Django. This is the Django XL actually, and I absolutely love this knife. Kunwu is a company that is just changing the landscape of knives. I'm going to do a video about that. They really are, because their level of quality at their price is just absurd. This is also done by Kunwu. This is the Ironfly. I did a video that went up yesterday about this. You should go check it out. This is the Ironfly knives. YOLO, but it is part of Kunwu. It's their budget brand from Kunwu. This thing's incredible for the price. So they're just an incredible company. I'm going to close this garage door so that I can let him back out. So give me a second. But there's items, and I'm going to grab one here in a second. There's items that people carry as EDC items that make zero sense to me. Like, I have a buddy that carries one of these. Where to put it? It's right there, but I'm going to close this garage. That may screw up our lighting. I don't know yet. I may have to figure out a way to adjust lighting. Wanted to grab a Vanex knife. Vanex is okay. It's not great. And I am apologizing for the lighting in advance. I wanted to close that door. We may relocate. I'm not sure. I may open it back up. Who knows? But there's some things that people carry that just make zero sense to me. And I was sure that I had put it out here Maybe it is still up here. Oh, there it is. I got a buddy that carries one of these every day. Now it looks like a pen. I'm like, why? What do you need that for? That makes no sense to me. There are things that some of my friends carry that make no sense. Like I said, Nico carries a fucking $300 ink pen. Zero common sense, zero sense for me to carry something like that. I'm not going into a boardroom where I want to impress people with my knife. I'm just horrible at corrosion, and I hear it's really good with not rusting. I don't like Van-X, to tell you the truth. It's on a list of steels that aren't my favorites. I really don't like it, and I don't think that the Van-X really gets you that much more rust prevention. I think, if anything, I would go with the MagnaCut. MagnaCut is amazingly good at rust prevention. That's why Spyderco started using it on their Salt series knives, as opposed to, I had to open it back up. It just feels weird in here with that. I'm sorry, guys. I can't make up my mind. They used it on their Salt series because it's really, really rust resistant. I just can't, it just feels too dark in here. It's really, really, really rust resistant. And that's why they started adding it to their Salt series of knives. 14C28N, also great for rust resistance. Elmax on this knife. This knife surprised me because this knife is done in Elmax titanium. It's got a Timascus pivot collar, and it's under $300. It's amazing what Kunwu is doing. But there are things that people do carry that I just don't think make a lot of sense. This is one of them. This is a multi-tool that's done by my friend over at Rat Bastard, my friend Nathan. He also owns Tempered Trail. Like I said, in a bunch of videos, Tempered Trail, there's a link in the description of my videos that saves you 10% on your purchase over there on the stuff that he's got on his website. But this is a Nuck, or a door knocker, or a head knocker, or whatever you want to call it. But it's a bottle opener, and it's got hex bits all over the place, and it's made to be a rat, and people carry things like this. Nucks in general, I don't understand. Like the having a basically what is an illegal brass knuckle in your hand makes no sense to me. It doesn't. And I'm like, why would you do that? Why would you even carry that? That makes zero sense. Bottle openers. This is a really cool bottle opener. But I have a couple friends that carry a little bottle opener like this on their keychain. I honestly, as much as I ever drank in my life, never carried a bottle opener in my pocket. I'm like, well, if you're starting to carry a bottle opener, you may need to go to treatment for your consumption. Like, are you carrying that so you can have a beer on the job site at lunch? I'm pretty sure your employer may frown on that. Now, if you guys lost audio, let me know. Oh, I forgot. I put my coffee. I honestly don't carry that many items, even though I have a channel that's devoted to just devoted to knives and EDC stuff. So, and guys, there's 40 of you here. Please drop a like. Double tap that screen. But there's other EDC items that do make sense. I have started carrying. This one needs to be replaced. It's starting to swell. And it doesn't hold a charge. I'm pretty sure the battery in this one is about to go tits up. I just got a bottle opener. Oh, but then you'd probably have a problem. I mean, I've never had a problem opening a bottle of Coke. And the fact is, the majority of soda bottles are twist tops. So, I mean, it just never made any sense to me. But the fact is, carrying a pry bar, most of your pry bars have a bottle opener on them. Pry bar is a bottle opener. It's actually pretty cool. And like I said, some people think a flashlight is ridiculous. I have, just on my workbench here at the filming station, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 flashlights. 4 flashlights. I've got that many, if not more, in the house. They're great. They're rechargeable, stuff like that. And like I said, a pry bar does come in really handy for a lot of things. It's almost to the point like what I was with an EDC flashlight. I didn't see the sense in it. These, I never thought I would need this. I never thought I needed a rechargeable battery bank. And now I've got several of them. You know, this one, which needs to be recycled because, like I said, you can see the different swelling on this. I have a huge big battery bank that works as in the studio here as my secondary power source. I have one outlet in this garage that I have access to when I'm filming. I'm running cameras, microphones, lights, all that stuff off of one outlet. That doesn't work for me. So I have like a Jackery power bank up here on a shelf to my right here on these shelves. Here, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So on these shelves here, if I can get it turned so you guys can see it. Let me see here. I'll just turn you guys around. Uh-oh. Right here is a power bank. You guys probably just I gotta fix the audio. I gotta fix the audio. I think I just disconnected the microphone. I have an iPhone too, and my iPhone's old, and I have to stay connected. But the big thing is when I'm filming, if I have something, like say maybe I forgot to charge my lights, I have an outlet basically that's built in. I just charge that every few days, and I've got something sitting there that allows me to carry, you know, have an addition. It's like having power on both sides of the filming station, and it definitely comes in extremely handy. I use it way more than I ever would have expected to. The other thing, where's it at? The other thing that's a weird everyday carry that I absolutely do carry, this is a weird one, and it has a purpose. I purchased this item for my wife and daughter because my wife is Japanese. She was making trips to Japan after the tsunami and the, was it the Fukushima or the Fukushima? After the Fukushima power plant meltdown. She was in Japan. I wanted her to have a way to test foods. This is a radiation detector, and it works really well. And to test it, I have some items just so I can make sure that it's working properly and get a baseline. I have a lead-lined box with uranium ore in it. And you can see it will give you a warning. And you can test, because there's a certificate in this. Yes. There's a certificate in this that should tell you what your baseline radiation readings are going to be. Let me turn this back off. And so I carry this occasionally just because it's fun. It's an everyday carry-on, but it's also something cool that you can find things with that you might not expect. Like there's your radioactive sands and stuff. How low does that reading go? It goes really, really low. And it's something that you can put in your backpack and just carry it around. Actually, if you go to Seal Beach, California, it's what's called a hot beach. And that is because the sands actually are radioactive at a low level. Now, this is a really low level of radiation emitter. It's uranium ore. It's perfectly safe, but your detector, and I have it set just so that I can see when it goes off. It's a way to test things, and it is a cool little item that I didn't think I would enjoy carrying as much as I do, but I wind up carrying this because with the app and everything, you can track and find hotspots on the map and things like that. So this is a weird EDC item that most people aren't going to carry. I think it's fun. I carry it occasionally, especially if I know I'm going somewhere where there might be like weird radiation levels and things like that. But it's just a lot of fun. And with the app, you can look at like all kinds of stuff, because it's not just a Geiger counter, it's actually what's called a scintillator. And so it's a really, really cool thing, but I got it so that my wife could check foods that she was giving my daughter when they were in Japan the first time they went after the Fukushima radiation incident at the nuclear power plant. So this is a really, really cool thing that was bought for a specific purpose, but now gets carried by me occasionally because it's just fun. Other things that I carry that are probably out of the norm would be these little haptic fidget tools. Now, my buddy over at Otter EDC on Etsy makes these. These are little magnetic haptic fidget toys. They're really, really fun. So you can take it apart and you can make it so it doesn't make noise and things like that. But this is on my workbench or in my pocket a lot because I absolutely have ADHD, and this allows me to focus and do things. It's just a little fidgety toy. I've got one of these that is just a little fidgety thing. I've got, where's the other one? I've got one of the drifter coins from Focus Works. I have a magnetic domino that I mess around with and play around with. But if you guys watch the channel, you know this is actually my rating system, yep or no. There's a lot of weird EDC stuff that we carry. A lot of us do. I actually even have a small little Black & Decker tape measure that I will carry from time to time because it's always nice to be able to measure something if you're out and about, especially if you're going somewhere and you're like, oh, well, let's see if we've got something that'll fit on the shelf that I could use as a drawer. I take my measurements when I go, and then I measure at the swap meet or wherever we're at. It's just a little Black & Decker tape measure that I absolutely do carry in my pocket from time to time because it's not that big a deal, because it's not even as big as a bottle of eye drops. And for measuring small things that you want to see if it's going to fit, it's great. It's not as big as and I think it's just like a little 5-foot tape measure. It goes in my pocket a lot. Things like that. Little weird things that we carry from day to day, but there are things that just people carry. Like, what's the weirdest? Let me get your take on it. What's the weirdest EDC item you guys have seen? Like I said, I think for me, this one, which is basic, because I've had one of these for years. I forget who gave me one of these. It's a switchblade ice pick, basically. Mine has reached a point where it doesn't want to lock every time, so it's not great. But this is going to be in a video before too long. I don't see the purpose in this. Some people do, but like I said, I don't see the purpose in this, but some people do. I will tell you, having been military, there are things that I do carry in my pocket that some people don't. I carry challenge coin. I have multiple challenge coins. I have some small ones here. This one's from Rosecraft Blades. I absolutely sometimes carry this. This is a really cool one. This is where my wife and I went basically on our honeymoon. When we finally got a chance to go to a honeymoon. This is from the Aladdin, which is now, I think, the Planet Hollywood in Las Vegas. This is a Memento challenge coin to remind myself to live my life properly. You know, I could leave life right now. I have a ton of challenge coins because I was in the military. I would carry my unit coin with me everywhere I went, because if you don't have it in your pocket and you're at a bar and somebody says when they see your coin, that's why it's a challenge coin. They challenge you for your coin. If you don't have your coin in your pocket, you got to buy them a drink. So I always carried one. I still carry one. This is just one that I carry. And I mean, you can tell it gets carried. It's really something that I carry a lot. What is your everyday carry? What do you guys carry that's like an everyday thing? Like I said, I don't recommend these. I really don't. For everything that I would need out of this, I can get it out of this. There's nothing in here that I can't do with this except pliers. And like I said, I've never been somewhere out a way where I needed a pair of pliers that badly that I couldn't wait till I got home. Because if I'm working on something, I'm probably gonna have a full set of tools that has a good pair of pliers in it, because these aren't the best pliers. They really aren't. They don't open up very far. They're awkward and things like that. So it's like the worst possible version of everything on this. Like a multi-tool is like the worst possible version of every tool in this that you could need, when you're typically going to be close enough that you can grab an actual screwdriver or an actual file or an actual pair of pliers. And the only thing that's on these that are ever worth much of anything are the knives. And I have to admit, back in the day, this is a Gerber. This was made in the USA. This is an old school Gerber. It's still made in the USA. And the blades that were on this one were really, really good. This is probably the best serrated blade knife I've ever owned. And it happens to be in this Gerber. And the smaller blade that's on it, the actual drop point blade that's on it, is not bad either. The two best tools that are on this, are something I'm already going to have in my pocket, which is the knives. That's the two best things on this, is the knives. Everything else on it is mediocre, and the fact is, on this Leatherman, everything on it is broken. The tips on all of the screwdrivers and things on this Leatherman are broken. I don't need this style multi-tool. I just realized that light back there is on and I don't need it. I'm wasting electricity. And that's not closed. So, you know, my dog brought my daughter's sock out here. He loves grabbing socks. Don't know why. So I will show you another weird one. Now this is a multi-tool that I'm still on the fence about. I put it here somewhere. Let me put this uranium ore out of the way. I just had, oh, here we go. This is a weird one. I'm on the fence on this one. Not because of the concept, because I do really dig the concept. This is a small little toolkit. I need to put my reading glasses on because I'm old. This is a small little toolkit, all right? It's really clever. This is done by Olight. This is the Otical D2. It's in titanium and carbon fiber. But underneath here are all your bits. It is a bit driver, and they're double-sided. Now, the problem I have with this is none of the bits in here are going to fit what I want. That's where I'm on the fence. Like, I personally don't see the value in this, because it's got a couple of, here, let me pull these out and show you. It has a T6 and a T8 on this, which for a lot of knives is going to be what I need. But those are the only Torx bits that are in there. Now, for my, for this knife here, if I needed to take it apart, it's perfect. This thing's perfect. T6, T8. T8 body screws, T6 on the lock. It works great for that. That's the only two sizes Torx you have on it. And then you have a couple of Allens. You have a hex. You have an H1.5 and an H2. Now, I do believe possibly the H2 is the bit that I need if I'm carrying this knife. And it is. I can absolutely take apart my, well, I think it's still too small. I think it's too big. This one's too small. This one's too big. Those two bits really are kind of limited. And then there's one flathead and 4 Phillips, or 3 Phillips on this. So really, really small Phillips, like if you need to do glasses, a large flatter one, and even another small one that's just kind of in the middle between those two, and a flathead. That's all that's in there. But the problem is these bits are not the same size as any other bits I've found. I can't find the bits for it. If it was that simple, I would just swap out tools. This was a gift, so I'm not like trying to like berate a gift that somebody sent me, but other than the cool fidgety factor of it, it really doesn't fit my purposes. I can't use it for a lot of stuff. I have a handful of knives that it would work on, right? But I'm not going to take up that real estate in my pocket for something I'm probably not going to do anywhere anyway. Like if I'm carrying this, T8, T15, I can't tighten the pivot. Body screws on this knife never come loose. The pivot screw on this has come loose. I don't have that tool in there. It's just one of those tools that just doesn't make any sense. Try the Big Idea Designs inline bit bar. I don't even know what that is. I don't know if you're talking about the bits, but the fact is I have got a ton of bits. These are all Torx. This is a set, and I just purchased these. You can get them on through my Amazon store if you want, but this is a set of T5 through T40s, and then they're duplicated. These are the longer ones that you put in a drill bit, and these are the smaller ones you put in a bit driver. They still fit. Chuck size is the same. It fits almost every. I can take apart any knife with that. I use my custom Burger Customs bit driver that I've got here. They fit perfect in that. They also fit this. And then for anything else I would need outside of that, like sometimes you need 2 bit drivers. Okay, I'll check it out and see. Maybe they have bits that fit it. These bits do not fit it. I thought maybe these bits did. They do not fit in the chuck on that. But this is, you know, I've got all the bit drivers I need, really. I don't need one for in my pocket. And the truth is, if I notice that the pivot's coming loose on my knife, I'm probably going to be home shortly, and I can just tighten it down. I'll just remember to tighten it down when I get home. I don't need to carry a bunch of tools. My little buddy Nico carries like an EDC pouch with him that has all the tools he would ever need. But then again, we already established, Nico's been seen at knife shows carrying sometimes 20 knives. You see what I'm saying? I have a workstation here where I take knives apart and things like that. I don't need to drag all that shit around with me. Let's see here. The Hobbit, my little buddy Nico, is about to have a baby. Him and his wife Bridget are having a baby like next month. So if you happen to see the Hobbit anywhere on social media, congratulate him on the little clone. His wife's barely showing. She's 8 months pregnant. And he was like, yeah, she's barely even showing. And I was like, you're like this big, bro. It has pliers too. I don't need the pliers. Like I said, very rarely have I ever used the pliers on any of my multi-tools. I've used them to cut wire a couple times just because I couldn't find my wire cutters. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me to have something big and bulky. I do know that there's some smaller ones out there. All the multi-tool, I never have purchased a single set of multi-tools. These were all issued to me while I was in the military. This one was issued to me back in the 90s. This was issued to me 2000 when I went on an IA, when I went downrange. These are the Leatherman Blast, I want to say. Yeah. I was like 2001-ish when I was given these. Maybe later. This may have been when I went back again. Can you say, what the Sigma? Let's see here. Trolls. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, and then there's stuff that I get why people carry it, but I don't. And then there's another thing that is, it's an EDC item, and it's not, I got a headache because I've been reading these comments with my reading glasses off. There's items that I do understand people carrying, and I'm trying to find the other one. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? It's here somewhere. Well, I've got one example. That's enough. But this example is a good example. And then there's some that really aren't. I thought I just saw it. I know I just saw it. I swear I just saw it here. It's knives with replaceable blades. It's a good concept, right? It sounds like a good idea. It sounds like a great idea, right? Well, I got something that is really similar. So people are buying these utility knife carriers, right? This is just a utility knife. Right? It's just a utility knife. There are people out there that are buying very expensive, over-the-top versions of this. And I don't understand it because the fact is the blades that you're going to put in this, the most important part, are crappy. I got to find it. I got to find it because I want to show you the point I'm trying to make. People have been trying to make this a thing for a while, and it capitalizes on this ability to sell you something you really don't need. At any rate, I have a good one here, and then I have something like this. So there's some limits. The problem with all of these, the problem with all these replaceable blade, like box cutter knives that are out there, is you always are just only getting this, but it's like the ink pen, right? It's like the whole ink pen thing. People carry like $500–600 ink pens. It's only as good as the cartridge that you're putting in it. Like I said, I have not found a pen that writes any better than this Pentel rollerball gel ink pens. I've never found one that writes as good or better. Never. It's only as good as the ink cartridge that's in it. You can have a $500 knife, but it's a shitty ink cartridge. It's just not going to write well. This, making something like this, where you only are using this much of the blade, still only using that much of the blade, even though you can flip it, it's only as good as the blade that's in it. So if you're paying $300 and $400 sometimes for these fancy, glorified utility knives, they're only as good as the blades you're putting in them. And I got news for you. These blades that they're putting, they're only as good as these blades. I bought this set of 100 blades for less than $10. I want you to think, how well is it going to cut? Right? It's probably not going to cut that well. They're not going to be that great of a knife. They're not that good of a blade. They're pretty crappy. If you're putting these, oh, Jesus Christ, it's like polishing a turd. If you have one of these holders that are $200 and $300, but you're putting a 10-cent blade in it, you're going to still get a crappy end result. $400 pen only writes as good as the cartridge that's in it. A $300 utility knife holder, utility knife blade carrier, is only as good as the blade you're putting in it. Now, am I saying don't buy them? No, I'm not saying. If that's what you're into, if that's what floats your boat, by all means, go ahead and get it. It's driving me nuts that I can't find the one I wanted to show you. I thought for sure I had it set here specifically to point out in this video. Unfortunately, I think I have rearranged things to the point where I can't find it. But they're only as good as the blade you're putting in it. Now, there's some exceptions to that. I have one of these. This is a small, little utility knife blade. More accurately, a small scalpel. This does come in handy, and this does get used. I use this for small cutting, small things that I need a very, very thin blade for. Usually, when I get things in, especially 3D printed items, and I'm trimming things up and things like that, stuff like that, this does come in handy for some of those small, tiny little tasks. Cutting out designs on paper, because I still do have knife concepts in my head, and so putting them on paper and then tracing them onto something thicker gives you a better feel for how that's going to be. so you can cut cardboard out with this. These things are actually really, really purposeful, especially if, like, when my daughter, we used this when my daughter and I put together her book nook, which is just a little thing that goes on her shelf, and it's a 3D thing, and it was all laser cut wood with a sticker on the front, and it lays out like a shop setting, and it's all lit, but all of those parts had these weird little edges on them, and you had to trim them with this. We used this a lot that day. They absolutely come in handy, and they're a nice little knife. You put it on your keychain. I use this for trimming threads on clothes a lot because it's a nice thin little knife that cuts through things really well, and sometimes, like, I have a good bit of shake in my hands. I don't necessarily want a big, you know, imposing knife for little tasks. It's a great little thing. And like I said, blades are replaceable. For a hobby like model maker, absolutely something cool. Those utility blade holders made sense to me before I learned how to sharpen. Yeah, and there's what I do with it. There's one that came out that's not too bad. It's pretty. It was done by a company. New Knives was the name of the company. I'm trying to see if it fell down here. New Knives made one. They did a Kickstarter, and it was pretty cool. They sent me one, and for the price on it, it wasn't too bad of an item. And I went my cane. This is one that I wanted to talk about too. This is an everyday carry item that I never thought I would carry, but now that I'm getting older and I have a bad knee, a very bad knee, that's probably going to need another surgery before too long, along with my shoulder, is a cane. So I've got a couple nice canes. I have a cane sword that I carry. I don't carry it anymore, but I have this, which is a nice, classy option for a cane. This is one where it does make sense, as opposed to a pen that I'm paying a lot of money for. This makes sense to me. This is attractive. This looks nice. It's not something, just a shitty, like, fold-up cane. This is a purpose-built item, and it's perfectly sized for me. This is a Cold Steel City Stick. But I take it on walks with the dog because that is almost unbreakable, 11 layers of fiberglass. And I have used this. Small little dog attacked mine, and I was carrying this, and I cracked the shit out of him with my City Stick. It's a great little item. Absolutely one that I would recommend. Did I put that on that shelf down here? I did. There it is. I knew I had it out. I knew it when I was putting stuff away when I did. So here is the one that I was talking about for replaceable blades that did kind of make sense to me. It still has a lot of limitations, but this one, you have a lot more blade that's accessible to you for use. But you can see where the problem is. Even this one, for as much as I like this one, it feels like a knife. It carries like a knife. Let me see here. What strings? What? Just dropped in. Hope hey, strings. Okay. I like the Parker pins, but you can use it to hold a handcuff key. Who cares? Well, then don't watch. This utility blade makes sense. There we go. Afternoon. This one's actually a pretty cool one. It's not difficult to change out the blade, and you have more access to the blade. But like I said, if you're cutting into something, you're going to hit the back of this. It still is just a box cutter. And the fact is, you can't do everything with this that you can do. Everybody's like, well, that's all you need. That's why I carry just a box cutter knife like this, because that's all anybody needs. That might be all you need. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not all I need. I don't hunt very often anymore. It's been years. This is going to be much more useful to me hunting. Well, this is worthless to me if I'm hunting. I can't skin game with this. This is too pointy. You're going to pop a gut. Any of you that ever hunted, popping a gut is a bad thing. You can use this for skinning. Your tip is swept back. You can cut in this area, and your tip is to the rear where you're not going to pop a gut. In case you guys have ever wondered why knives that are shaped like this, why they're like this, that's why. These smaller knives, I can get up on this. This is one of the main reasons that these knives are shaped like this, is in the... No, I didn't say it to you. It was to someone else. I can guard that tip, and I can cut around things. Skinning knives, typically shorter blade, a lot similar to this. I have one that's somewhere that's really a good version of that. Is it this one? Yeah, here's a good version of that. It's a really good small skinning type knife. Really, really good control on this. I can get way up on it. I can skin around things and I don't have to worry about popping a gut, right? Have one of those older backlock folding cutters. Got it in a set of 2 with larger and smaller. I keep it in my toolbox. Blades like this have a specific purpose, right? They fit a specific purpose. For somebody to just go like, oh, you need a box cutter. That's not true. If you work in a warehouse, that might be all you need. I don't work in a warehouse. I look like I should be cutting lumber somewhere. Who makes the red knife? This is the Pocket Monster by Rosecraft. And Savannah accidentally made one of the best small game knives you're ever going to find. This is probably one of the most comfortable little knives that you could use for skinning I've come across in a very long time. Wonky blade to handle ratio, right? But on a skinning knife, that's what you want, a smaller blade with a bigger handle. So much more control. The closer you are from the pivot to the tip, the more control you have over that knife. That's why, for a lot of people, the smaller version of this knife is going to be better. For me, I'm 6'3", I wear triple XL gloves. This is a really, really, really good size knife for me. The smaller one's going to be better for most of the people out there. It's same with the difference between this knife, which is probably the best EDC knife on the market, and this knife, which I like a lot more because I'm a big guy. This doesn't feel so far out of sorts for a lot of people. A big knife, like I said, the farther that tip is from the pivot or from your fingers, the less control you have of it at the tip. Now you can get up on it and do some stuff, but then you put yourself in a little bit of peril on a knife that's as incredibly sharp as this one. Getting yourself closer from pivot to tip or from fingers to tip is going to give you a much, much better amount of control. Lattice, this is a knife channel. I'm not putting the knife down. That's what we're here to talk about, knives and EDC gear. So it's a much better EDC pick for a lot of people because of the blade to pivot distance. Much better control. I carry this a lot, even though I like this one more. I carry this more. Who cares? Apparently the other 44 people that are here, because they're still here, Jaden. It's a great compromise in size from the full size to the PM2. I like when companies do that and offer you a bunch of different things. We're pretty much done with the EDC stuff unless you guys have a question about some of the EDC gear. I like the option of having an XL version or the smaller version because some people want a smaller version. It's one of the things. How's Rosecraft folders treat? I love the Rosecraft folders. More accurately, their stuff is good. This one is a great little knife. This is the Yoka. This is the Yoka by Rosecraft Blades. A great little like gentleman's folder. Let me see here. This is a great little gentleman's folder. It's nice and slim, but you still got a lot of blade. It's not too slim. It's still comfortable in hand. The Rosecraft, but where I find that the Rosecraft stuff, as good as they are, the best, like all their knives are good, right? I like all the Rosecraft stuff I've got so far. I think where they really shine is in their slip joint folders. This is a small little gentleman's folder, small little gentleman's slip joint. This is their Barlow with a sheep's foot blade. This thing is great. It is an amazing knife. You don't use a knife to do that. Weissman, Masori, you just don't do that. You just fire another round. It's humanitarian, the humanitarian thing to do. You don't just let an animal sit there and suffer, even if you're hunting. Like, everybody's like, hunting is cruel. If hunting is done correctly, it is not cruel. Hunting is not cruel, and it's used for overpopulation areas. They open up hunting to get the population down because it's much more humane to allow people to hunt an animal and take them out quickly and humanely than to let them starve through the winter because there's not enough food to support the current population. That's why regulated hunting is a good thing. It's based on population levels. If you have an overpopulation of an animal, you open a hunt. If you have if you don't have, like if there's an underpopulation, then you limit hunting or shut it down completely. Regulated hunting is one of the best things that can be done to regulate animal populations across the globe, period. It's one of the best things. As a sharpener, how do you like 12C? 12C is, yeah, then you just sign off too. And I don't know what country that is, but that's weird. That doesn't sound like anything I've ever heard. And I've been to 16% of the countries on the planet. So, I mean, it could be something like that, but the Rosecraft lineup is great. As far as 12C27, 12C27 and 14C, super, super similar. I love them both. I prefer 14C28N. That's what this knife is in. 14C is probably one of the best all-around blade steels out there. I really find that well, let's put it this way. People are like, they argue with me when I say it. It was designed for knives. 14C28N and 12C, they were designed for knives. People, no, it was a razor steel. No, it is a variation of a steel that existed, but once you change that composition, it's a completely different steel, which means that 14C28N is a recomposition of steel that was made for a specific purpose, which is knives and cutting tools. And it's great. 12C as well. The Sandvik steels are amazing. They're a reason that they're so good still. And one of my favorite steels to this day. And they are up there with some of the super steels, in my opinion, with those Sandvik steels. Now, somebody was asking, how do I feel about the button lock Barlow? I have not gotten to see. The button lock version of any of these knives. I have not seen one. I've heard of them. I heard that they're pretty good. I mean, the fact is, sorry, my daughter is texting me from the campus. I have not seen anything from Rosecraft that would be something that I would consider not well done. Well, the fact is that's because they were really, they were really diligent in trying to figure out how they wanted to do their manufacturing and who they wanted to do it for them. And so I think they've made some really good choices on manufacturers. I honestly don't know who makes their slip joints for them. I suppose I could ask. I'm friends with Savannah. Swags is great, by the way. She just had a baby, so if you want to go over and wish her well, do it over on Instagram. Get Swags, give her a congratulations on the fact she has a new baby girl. So I don't know. I can't say that it would be a miss. I have not seen a miss from Rosecraft yet. I mean, I like the designs, but I mean, the quality that's in this is great. I would like to have seen it in a different steel. What are you supposed to oil Damascus with? You can oil Damascus with almost anything. To be honest with you, I honestly think that for Damascus or something like that, especially, no, it's her first. She was basically taking care of one of her nieces at one point, and helping raise one of her nieces. But no, that's her first baby girl. That's her first child, I should say. The best thing that I can tell you for Damascus, especially if it's like that garbage Pakistani Damascus or Alabama Damascus, which a lot of times is a high carbon and a high nickel, which I don't like them in the first place because then you get varying degrees of hardness. They're very dissimilar metals. But if you're going to do it, just take some Vaseline, warm it up in your fingers, and then just wipe it on the blade, especially if you're going to be carrying it. And then in the sheath, your sheath is going to like hold the Vaseline in the sheath a little bit and stuff like that. But if it's a folding knife, I recommend that. There are also some blade waxes. People are like, oh, I only want to use something food safe. And I'm like, I'd be more worried about the other shit that's on your knife that came out of your pocket than the food safety of the lubricant or protectant you're putting on it. There are some blade waxes on the market. Don't buy this one. Don't buy this one. It's a ripoff. This is $15. It's a waste. But this is food safe. You can buy some blade wax stuff that you can get. There's some stuff called Ren wax, which is basically like shoe polish. It does have a solvent in it. When you open it up, it smells like shoe polish. But you put that on, and once the VOCs, the volatile chemicals, come out, you don't have to worry about that being an issue. But there's another thing you can use, which is every bit as good, and that's some Vaseline. Like I said, or as soon as I find it, it lives here on my workbench. But apparently, when I put the new TV up, we moved everything, and a bunch of stuff got moved. Just some chapstick. Take your chapstick out of your pocket, rub some on the blade. Olive oil is not a very good protectant. Strings, it really isn't that good of a protectant. It's not going to give you the level of protection that you would want in something that you're going to put on a knife to prevent rust and things like that. Vaseline will. Vaseline's food safe. There's my chapstick. Chapstick works. You put it on your lips. People put Vaseline on their lips all the time. I don't see it being a problem. But, you know, there's other things you can use. KPL makes something. I need to order a new bottle of it. KPL makes some stuff they call Knife Shield. It's amazing. You spray it on. You spray it on your blade, especially if you like adhesive or like pine tar or grease or something on your blade. You spray it on. You leave it on for about 30 seconds. You come back and wipe it off. It's got a waxy coating in it, but it is food safe. Let's just say here, food safe, rust preventative. Cleans, degreases, polishes, prevents rust and corrosion on metal surfaces. Stuff's great. It's not that expensive, and I've had this bottle for over a year, and I could still use it. You can also, if you are so inclined, where's the other? There it is. KPL, the oil, food safe. Just put a little bit of this on, wipe it on the blade, leave it on there. It's a really good rust inhibitor, things like that. But you can also use mineral oil. Things I don't recommend, WD-40, it evaporates off too quick. I don't like any of the stuff with the PETF. First of all, it's got the forever chemicals in it that are highly carcinogenic. So things like rem oil and stuff like that. So if you're worried about what you're putting on your blade you're gonna cut it with, I'd be more inclined to worry about what you're putting on your pivot, right? KPL, food safe. But if you're putting rem oil in that pivot, it's not, and you're leaching forever chemicals all over your blade, right? The KPL works. Here's the thing I have problem with lighter fluid. You guys, hear me out. And this is, I like Ryan, but it's not like I'm endorsing this because I'm friends with Ryan. The reason I like this is if you put, like everybody's just use lighter fluid. Lighter fluid evaporates off really quick. And if you've got a thick, heavy layer of residue on your blade, you're going to have to make multiple swipes with it. It evaporates too quick. Same thing with rubbing alcohol. Rubbing alcohol will do it. But it doesn't have the stay time because you want like 91, to remove adhesive, you want like 91%, maybe 80%. But the 70% that you buy usually does not have enough solvent capable to power to it to remove the adhesive. Lighter fluid evaporates too quickly. 90% alcohol evaporates too quickly. You put this on, you can leave it on there for fucking 3 minutes and then come back and wipe it off with a microfiber cloth and it's gone. And now you've done two things at once. I've cleaned it and I've put a protective layer on it that's going to prevent it from rusting. So it's people are like, oh, you could do this, you could do that. I'm like, yeah, if I wanted to take multiple steps to do the same thing. However, in the military, we called it economy of motion. Most people call it lazy. I don't have to do a bunch of things. If I can find something that does everything at once and does it well, that's the one I'm going with. Let's see here. Use food oil. I'm just saying, like, I don't see, like, I'm back to the olive oil. I don't see olive oil being that good at protecting. I have used it on straight razors. Like straight razors that when I would shave every day, you guys remember it was a time where I would do the shaves with straight razors, things like that. Protecting a straight razor with olive oil from day to day is great, especially in a humid environment like your bathroom. If you're putting your expensive straight razor in your medicine cabinet above the sink where you shave, or in the bathroom. I never did that. I had a specific spot for it. I have an old cigar humidor that I would keep them in with a pack of desiccate. They're still in there. But if you're just gonna like shave with it and then wipe it off and then put it in your medicine cabinet till the next day when you shave with it again before you strop it, just put some olive oil on it. Just make sure you wipe it off before you strop it. You don't want that on your expensive strop. It's not great for long-term rust prevention. And like I said, most people are all concerned like, oh, well, I put that on my blade, but they don't think about what they put on their pivot. Anything with PETF, rim oil, some people like the frog lube stuff. I think that has PETF, the Teflon, anything with the Teflon in it. You don't want that. CLP break free. No, those things have forever chemicals on them in them that you do not want in your body. And yet people are concerned about what I wiped off the blade with, but not worried about what's in their pivot. That's the dangerous part. So that's why I use KPL on everything, because I don't worry. Olive oil can go rancid over time. Yes, coconut oil is much more shelf stable. Like I said, chapstick works great. Chapstick works great to just wipe a little bit on a blade. You what? You too. Strings. You too. I don't know. I don't know where we're going with that. Now, there's things you can do with, hey, mosquito. Last thing I want is another mosquito bite. Mosquitoes have been horrible. Let me see. I can't think of any other EDC stuff. Like, you guys got any questions about some EDC stuff? Like whether I think it's about, I mean, here's the thing. Everybody's EDC is going to be different. If you personally like to carry something that I view as worthless, well, that's up to you. Some people are into that. Case in point, my friend Nick Shabazz and I, this made me think about it because I had put my watch on to charge. Nick Shabazz and I talk pretty often because I'm friends with Nick. I like Nick a lot. Nick is into watches. Nick spends almost as much money on watches as he does knives at this point. And I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get it. I wear an Apple Watch. I'm probably going to wind up replacing the screen on this one because I banged into it. I like it because I don't necessarily have to have my phone. And if I need to find my phone, I can find it with this. I can ping it and things like that. And I can send texts and I can do stuff like that. If we were the same, it would be boring. It's absolutely correct, Strings. But he's into watches. Now, my buddy Nico is not into watches, but he's into pins. We all have our little things. And the fact is, this whole EDC community, watches, pins, knives, gear, it all goes really hand in hand. And a lot of times those hobbies overlap. I'm basically into knives. I'm not into watches. I'm not into pins. But a lot of people, if they're into knives, they're probably also into watches and pins, at least to some degree. I will say I do enjoy watching some of the watch channels like Wristwatch Revival and the Naked Watchmaker. I find it interesting to watch them take watches apart and things like that. But having an expensive watch has never been something that's way up on my priority list. I do have one. It was a gift from a friend when he passed away. He had left word with his wife that he wanted me to have his really nice, expensive watch. And it's not even super expensive, like an $800-900 watch. It's in my safe. I've never put it on my wrist. So that's just, you know, there's just things that for some people it overlaps. Some people it doesn't. For some people, carrying a pair of pliers in their pocket is great. For me, I think it's a waste of space. This is, what did my grandmother always said? Jack of all trades, but master of none. This does, it does everything, but it just doesn't do it very fucking well. The proper tools and their uses, this just is not something I see useful. Because the tools that are on it, I have better versions of in my toolbox. Like I said, then there's some things that not everyone even sees the sense in. Like I said, the blade conquest, another blade connoisseur. This radiation detector that I sent to Japan with my wife and kid. This is a lot of fun, and I carry it a lot. A lot of times it stays in the car because the thing that goes with it is the app that's on the phone. So you can like track your areas. You see hot spots on the map and things like that. And you can see like it has like a graph that shows the different types of radiation that you're picking up and what isotopes. And I find that interesting. I've always been kind of a science nerd. That's not something for everyone. So what's some of the weird stuff you guys have seen people carry? Just out of curiosity, what's some of the weird stuff you've seen people carrying that you're like, I just don't understand why that's I don't understand why that's a thing. I basically carry a multi-tool for the times I need a screwdriver on the fly but don't have time to run to the shed. This is the best multi-tool any man or woman could ever purchase. And guess what? It's about the perfect size, and I've got 2 different sizes of flatheads, 1 Phillips head, pair of scissors, 2 knives. Bottle opener, can opener, always. You saw a person carrying a light katana. There is a guy that rides around San Diego on a bicycle with a goddamn katana on his back. I did a short about it here on YouTube, and I actually got a video of it. He passed me as I was leaving. I was working, this is before I got laid off. I was working nights doing security, and I was leaving the job site, and just passes me with a katana on his back, a full size. And I'm like, what in the absolute hell is going on? And some people are like, oh, it might have been an umbrella. No. I have an umbrella that looks like a Japanese katana, and I have actual katanas. I know the difference. My daily carry is an Ozark Trail multi-tool full metal with my name engraved on the side. I mean, for some people it makes sense. There's some things that just don't make sense to me. Like I said, the expensive pens. My coffee is extremely cold. But I was in the military for my entire adult life, and I will tell you that the thing that I learned about coffee is it doesn't have to be hot. It just has to be coffee, which is, I heard a guy say, I'm like, he came into the office, he'd been, one of the guys that I worked for, he was chief, but his name was Bruce. So Bruce walks into the office, and he had been in a meeting for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I'm sitting at my desk and I'm working. This was, I was short duty. And he walks in and he just grabs his coffee. He had poured a cup of coffee. He's like, shit, I'm late for that meeting. And then takes off to the main building to go to a meeting. And he comes back like 2 hours later. He sits down, he just starts drinking his coffee. And I'm like, isn't that cold? And he goes, doesn't have to be hot, just has to be coffee. I'm like, fair enough. Speaking of coffee, go check out Coffee Brand Coffee down below. They've got a coffee advent calendar that I got from my mom and sister and family back home in Ohio for their house. It is a coffee advent calendar. It looks really cool. It is a bit expensive, but 10% off if you use my link down below, Coffee Brand Coffee. No politics. Guys, I'm not going to tell you how to vote. I'm just going to tell you to go vote. If you think that anything that you saw on the news for either party just happens on its own, then you need to vote. If you don't like one of the candidates, then you need to cast your vote because you like the other candidate better. But you can't get upset if the candidate you don't like wins if you did not cast your vote. It was like, well, my vote doesn't matter. Your vote absolutely does matter. It leaves all questions, it doesn't leave any questions unanswered, right? If you don't like either candidates, you can write in a candidate, but that's how you make your voice. It's one of the most important things you can do. If you like Donald Trump, vote for Donald Trump. If you don't like Donald Trump, vote for Kamala Harris. I have no dog in the fight to tell you how to vote. I'm just telling you, you can't then turn around and complain if you don't vote. So go vote, make your voice heard. So, let You see, I took all my knives out of my pocket. I'll tell you what I do carry a lot. So I carry, we've talked about this, I carry more than one knife. So there's never a day that this knife is not in my pocket. And with this knife right now, because it's in the review process, is this knife. So these two knives are in my pocket, but a lot of times there's also a third knife. Why? Because this knife's really big. This knife's fairly big. A lot of times a big knife doesn't serve the purpose I want. A smaller knife is going to fit the bill. If I'm not, like on weekends when I'm not carrying stuff throughout the week to do stuff with for review process and things like that, a lot of times I'm going to carry a big knife like this and a small knife like this, or where is it at? I have another small knife here. This mini Labrador is a really good choice as a second knife. There's a lot of times that there's stuff you just can't do with a knife that's this big, or more accurately, sometimes there's times where people are going to throw a fit about something, even though you're not breaking any laws, you're not breaking any rules. This is a much more unassuming knife. It's barely any bigger than the palm of my hand. It's not even as big as like my hand, and I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but it's a small knife. It's unassuming. Great little knife to carry as a smaller knife. And the fact is, sometimes a large knife doesn't fit your purposes. So I typically have multiple knives in my pocket. I usually am going to have the knife I'm carrying, the knife I'm reviewing for carry. Sometimes if we're coming up on tight things, so I might have a knife in my pocket I'm carrying first day and a knife that's been in the review process for a while. Not saying that that's what this is. This might be the combination. I might have in my left pocket the knife I've been carrying for a while, like this one that I've been carrying for a couple weeks now. And then something that recently came in. Do I have anything that recently came in that I'm in the process with? Yeah, I do. And this is not in my pocket because it's huge. You guys saw first day. I haven't only carried this one day. I'm probably going to carry this a good bit today. This is a beast. This is the Arma 2 from Miguron Knives. It's massive. It's a big, big knife. That's why it's not in my pocket right now. It's an uncomfortable carry from time to time. So this would be in my right side pocket. My primary knife would be in my right side pocket. And then the knife that may be further along in the review process that I'm not going to use as much, but still going to use, in my left pocket. This will be in my left pocket today. There is a knife that I'm filming a first day in pockets about later today after I carry it for a little bit. That will be in my right pocket with something else. Maybe this today. But, man, I got to take this back apart. Somehow I got something is gritty and it's not wanting to, it's dirty. And I just took this apart and cleaned it on a video the other day. So I tried, I know what it is. I tried using fluorinated grease on the washers for this and it doesn't like it. It's not a Sebenza. This knife does not run as smoothly with grease as lubricant as I want it to, so we're gonna have to go back to oil because that is not what I was expecting. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of times that I'm carrying just multiple things, and there's a lot of reasons for it. Trying to think, what do you guys got? What do you guys want to talk about as far as knife stuff? Got any questions about like specific knives that I may or may not have here at the time? Oh, I could not find this knife for a while. You guys saw I had this out a minute ago. I couldn't find this knife for a while. I looked everywhere for this. Could not find it. I was like, where did I put this? And I remembered using it. And I was like, I just used it the other day because it's a really good knife. It's almost like a box cutter. It's a great big oversized box cutter in M390 steel with titanium and probably one of the coolest lock mechanisms on the market, which is this pivot lock, right? Couldn't find it. I looked everywhere for it. My wife was moving stuff around. I had opened something for her and then I had this in my hand and I was wearing shorts and I didn't put it in my pocket and I put it up on top of the shelf. And when she was, I think she was hanging up a plant and she was like, hey, why is there a knife on top of these shelves? And I was like, what? It's on top of the shelves in our kitchen. I had used this to help her open something and then just set it on top of the shelf and completely forgot about it. Fast forward a couple weeks, one of my favorite knives is back in my pocket sometimes because now I know where it's at. It was all dusty and shit. It's amazing how dusty things get on top of a set of shelves. Like when I looked at that knife, I was like, I don't ever want to reach up on top of that set of shelves again. Like I don't, like that's disgusting. And it's in the, you know, you can't get, I got a 7-foot set of shelves out here. I don't clean on top of this. It's one of those things you don't think about until you pick up something that's been on top of there for a while and you're like, oh God, I don't even want to know what it's like up there. The shelves are, I think it's a 7-foot set of shelves in the house too. She's happened to be on a step ladder, step stool, hanging a plant on one of the hooks. And she's like, hey, there's a knife on top of this set of shelves. Did you know that? I was like, no. She brought it to me. I was like, oh, that's filthy. Thanks. So, oh, I got something. I've got a garbage knife here. My buddy, Tino, we've talked about him a bunch on the channel. My buddy Tino's dad was a Green Beret. And he found a knife with the Special Forces logo on it. And he asked me if I could sharpen it just so his dad could open his mail with it. This is possibly the worst. This is a United Cutlery boot knife with aluminum handle. And it's quite possibly one of the worst knives. And I say that because the steel was so crappy that like it almost doesn't want to get sharp. And I told him I'm never sharpening it again. Like if it gets dull, like which it will the first time his dad opens an envelope with it. But I did sharpen it for him. But these, horrible. I know United Cutlery has made some okay stuff. And it's hit or miss with their stuff. This is horrible. And I knew it was going to be when I looked at the steel that was on it. And it says stainless steel, Taiwan. And I'm like, that's going to suck. But it's just a letter opener for his dad. Carry a big blade and a slip joint every day. Whenever I see someone use an expensive ass knife to cut spam, I'm not gonna lie, I cut pretty much everything with one of my knives. It's a lot of times it's easier, you know? I have it in my pocket. I mean, unless I'm cooking. Kane Miranda, what's up? What's up with you? What's up with you too? Oh, I'll show you some. I will show you something that was an everyday carry item for me at work. And I didn't carry it in my pocket, but it was with me every day. And I'll show you why. It's over here. I believe I left it over here when I undid my backpack. So I don't carry it around the house or anything because it doesn't make any sense. And I don't carry it if I'm going out anymore because I don't need to. Did the audio follow me all the way over there? I just don't know if I've got the microphone. I can't tell. Custom EDC knives. Hi, Mike. How's everything going? Hopefully your shoulder's doing better. It's not. Got some news and design in the works. Cool. Once I get prototypes, I'll message you, see if you want to check them out. Yes. Guys, I also have prototypes coming. I got the tracking number. So we will see those on the channel before you see them anywhere else. But I want to take a good close look at them before they show up. I'm also going to film a video when we get done here in a few minutes. We got about another maybe 10, 15 minutes that we're going to do this. This is an EDC item that's actually pretty cool. And I have this, I got this a long time ago. This is a case hobo. And I carried this in my backpack every day to work because I would without fail actually forget my silverware, my actual silverware. Now, is this thing perfect? No. It's a lot like Leatherman. It does a bunch of stuff, but it just doesn't do it real well. The stuff this does, it doesn't do great, but it's a good option. This is, why do men love knives? It's the second oldest tool we've had. And for men that were the hunters of the tribes, it's something that I think goes back to a genetic memory. It's no different. Having a knife in your pocket is as comforting at times as sitting around a campfire. There's a reason men will huddle around a campfire and just do nothing but watch the fire and feel a sense of relaxation. It is a genetic memory that takes us back to a sense of security and safety that goes back to when men were hunting and they had to have their knife. It goes all the way back to the caveman days. It's the second oldest tool we have, and I say it's the second because you have to have a hammer to make a knife. So your knife is the second oldest tool known to man. We used it for cutting, we used it for hunting, we used it for cutting food, skinning game, and it's just one of those genetic memories that resonates really, really strongly with men. Just is. But at any rate, this is a set of folding silverware, and I would forget my silverware every day. There is a spoon, there is a fork, and then a fairly decent little case knife. Now this is an older set, so the knife on it's pretty good. This is actually a nice little set of silverware. If you don't have anything else. If you're going camping, this would be adequate. Nice, it's not a great spoon, but it's a spoon. The parts go back on, they lock in place. It's not a great fork. The fork's actually not too bad. It's not a great fork, but it's still a fork. And then you simply put it in its leather sheath. Now, I did buy these from a guy that had had them for a very long time. They were in his toolbox. I went to go check out a firearm that he was selling. And he was like, I'm selling it. We still have to go through a secondary, we had to go through an FFL and all this to register it. I did not purchase the firearm, but when we were there, I saw this. And he goes, he's like, that's been here on my, in my toolbox for probably 15 or 20 years. He's like, it was something that I can't remember what his story was, but he'd had it forever. And he's like, I'll sell it to you. And I got this. These are not cheap. These are not a cheap item, but this is an old school set. You can see it's patinaed, and so has the leather on this. But you can still get these, and they're fucking great. I think, if I remember right, I had a cheap set of these when I was a Boy Scout, and we went camping. I think everybody got a set. They were just like cheap, crappy plastic ones. You can get these things in all kinds of, I know that K-Bar makes a set. REI has some that are kind of like this. I mean, you can get the titanium sporks. I personally like this one better. Okay, we're not doing this. No religion. No politics. I'm not doing that. We don't do religion, we don't do politics. We're here to have fun. There's too much of that in our day-to-day life. I simply was talking about voting because I was not being political. I didn't endorse a candidate. These things are great. It's a great, great item to have. And like I said, I'm a big dummy and I forgot my silverware so many times when I was at work, and it was just nice to have a little lunch kit, like a silverware kit. What happened here? Oh, mailman came. I should probably go check the mail. I am expecting those prototypes. When we get the prototypes in, they should be here before too long. They're coming from KATSU Knives, and they're going to be done in carbon fiber, S90V, and titanium. It's a frame lock flipper, and it is a larger version of a knife that I designed as a fixed blade, and they wanted to do it as a folder, and I was like, well, if you can turn it into a folder, I'm down. I have never had a folding design came out. We worked really closely on it. They showed me renders, and I was like, wow, that's actually pretty cool. So it's a larger version of what was going to be a smaller fixed blade knife and things like that. I'm really happy with that. I have a knife here that was the first knife that my grandfather got me. I have the first knife my father bought me, and I also have the first knife my grandfather bought me. I have a tiny little imperial penknife that was something that he got me at a little hardware store. Now it's rusty and things like that because it wound up being in a box of stuff, and I did not know where it was, and it did get damp, and I do have to do a little bit of cleanup. There's some rust on it where it was sitting. The carbon steel blade on it, that blade is a little bit rusty. It's still really sharp. And then the small little blade on it It's a stainless steel blade. This is just something, this was a little gift from my grandfather. And I mean, it's tiny. It's a tiny little penknife, but it's not a horrible little showing from Imperial. It needs to be soaked in some rust remover. And I have some. How convenient that I have some of that here. My grandfather, I have a lot of my grandfather's knives here. I have a couple of his Barlows. I have a couple of his small little folders that were Stockmans and things like that. So, bunch of stuff. And a lot of the knives that I have that were my grandfather's are very reminiscent of this. This is one of the things that I love about Rosecraft. Now, I'm gonna say something here. There's some other people that are making slip joints, right? There is the Jack Wolf knives. They're doing great. Enrique Pena is making some really cool slip joints and some folders, and there's some flipper folders and stuff now too. But Enrique was making slip joints for a while, and they're nice. He's doing them. I can't remember whether it's Riat or Wee, but his knives are great. All the Jack Wolf knives stuff is great. Their slip joints are amazing, and they're doing a more modern take on that, which I can appreciate. I absolutely can appreciate it. I'm not at all disparaging what they're doing. But for me, I find a traditional pocket knife being in a traditional form factor much more attractive. This is one of the best slip joints on the market. Now, you also have Great Eastern Cutlery. Their stuff's all made in America. These aren't. I will admit, these are made offshore. These are made in China. I don't know where. I don't know what company's doing it for them. But as far as some of the new incredibly well done slip joints, I think the Rosecraft stuff really appeals to me because this is what, when I grew up, this is what I saw. This is what my grandfather carried. This is what my father carried. This is what my great grandfather carried. I remember him having a little knife that he cut apples with. My dad's grandfather, Pap. I was little. This is what they carried, and that's why it appeals to me. Now, the Jack Wolf knife stuff is going to set a new precedent, and kids are going to have slip joints growing up in the future when they see stuff like Jack Wolf knives. They're going to be, that's what my dad carried, which is cool because now it's appealing to a broader audience in the knife world. But these traditional style pocket knives that Rosecraft is doing, and they're doing it very, very well, really appeals to me. And I've seen the Great Eastern Cutlery stuff. Their quality is amazing, but I don't think their quality is any better than what I've gotten in the Rosecraft stuff. And I would absolutely love to have a Great Eastern Cutlery slip joint. But one, they're expensive. Two, they are very hard to come by because that business is going to die. Great Eastern Cutlery is not going to be able to stay open. I've talked with Ben over at Jack Wolf Knives, and we both have talked about it. The guys that run Great Eastern Cutlery, the machines that they use are old machines. No one is maintaining them. The people that are the craftsmen aren't learning the craft. No one's coming in to learn the craft. When those folks that work there now leave, there's a good chance that we're never going to see anything from Great Eastern Cutlery. I hate that idea. I wish that people would go there and learn the craft, and someone would go back and start like going back through and digging through the tools and all the specs and everything on the machines they're using and revamp and clean up that machine shop, but they're not. And that's the problem. So your best, closest option are companies that are trying to bring you that level of quality. I would pay more. If Great Eastern Cutleries were more available, I would pay that price to get that knife. Problem is, I think that with the level of quality from some of these companies that we're seeing, it just doesn't make sense to spend that to get when you can get something comparable for less than $100. And it sucks to say that, but there's a lot of times. Now, there are companies that are bucking that trend. We've talked about that before. This knife is $150 cheaper than the first Microtech I bought. This is 100% American made. It's made, I forget where, I can't remember, it's Virginia now where Tony has Microtech knives. For a while it was Pennsylvania, like Bradford area where case knives and stuff are made, and Zippos. But these, it used to be Vero Beach, Florida, then I want to say Bradford. Is it Bradford? Or is it Bradford? Bradford, Pennsylvania. where Zippos are made in that area. Case knives are made in that area as well. Now they are, I believe, I can't remember, North Carolina, Tennessee, something like that. I don't know. Yes, I know the show Forged in Fire. It is the. I like the fact that they're bringing more people that are like, those are the people that are getting into knives now, are the people that watch Forged in Fire. Being a knife maker, I will tell you, that is the most difficult and silly way to make a knife. There's too many errors that can happen in that style of knife making, especially making multiple layered forged steel, Damascus, forged welded pattern, welded Damascus style steel. There's too many problems that can happen with that. I never made knives that way. I think that mono steel construction or a core. Let me show you what I'm talking about. A cored steel. I happen to have one here. So if you want that look, there are ways to do it. Damasteel. Damasteel is a type of patterned steel, but it's all basically powdered, and then it's rolled into one sheet, and it won't delaminate, it won't do any of these things, because you have two steels that are very, very similar. Two steels that are those tests they do are stupid. None of those tests are a good test. None of those tests are a good test of a knife. This is what's called laddered Damascus, but it has a core, right? So you see there's different layers, but your core, your central core, is the cutting edge, and that is the hard steel. These outer layers don't matter. They're just there for a design, right? They're just there for a design. The center on this is ZDP 189 at 67 Rockwell. Incredibly hard, incredibly good steel, super, super sharp. But then you have the look, the elegant look of that. There's also, like I said, the Damasteel. With Damasteel, Damasteel is two almost identical types of powdered steel. They're deposited to make a pattern, they're rolled out. When you etch it, you see the pattern. But when you heat treat it, you get a monolithic steel, which means one solid sheet of steel. Yes, they are very, very similar, but just enough different that when you etch it in acid, one has a lower chromium content than the other, and that gives you your ability to see the pattern. Similar to this. These are both stainless steels on this. One is just a little bit more susceptible to the acid etch that you would get on this. And so when you etch it, you can see the layers, right? But you're not giving up anything in cutting. You're not losing anything. With hand-forged Damascus, and I say that Damascus because what it is, it's pattern welded to duplicate the Wootz style Damascus steel that just was the way it was done in crucible form. It's Wootz steel or crucible steel. You don't get that with that pattern welded. What you're doing is you're putting multiple layers and you fold it so you get a pattern. It's not as good because you have very dissimilar metals. Usually they're using 10 and 26. You're using a high carbon and then a high nickel steel. Well, high nickel steels don't harden very well. The carbon steel that you're using is going to harden. And what you get is they get a differential hardness on those. So if that's all the way to the cutting edge, you're gonna have parts of the steel that are harder than others, parts of the steel that are softer than others. And when you're cutting with it, it gets really weird because you'll have parts of the knife that wear different than other parts of the knife. Nickel does not harden. These nickel steels don't harden anywhere near as good as the carbon steel that's in them. When you get, do I have it here to show you? Is it right here? A lot of times it lives on this shelf over here. I have a knife that is similar to the Damasteel. And so when you do those welds, one, you can have parts where it delaminates, like the steel doesn't weld, the weld doesn't take, and you'll have spots where the steel comes apart, the blade starts to come apart, and you have inconsistencies and things like that in the steel. Like I said, difference in hardening. but they're only doing that for a design. With the Damasteel, or some of the newer methods of, I'm pretty sure I put it back in here. With the new methods of powdered metallurgy and doing things like that, you get the same overall appearance. I'm gonna try and find it. You get the same overall appearance, but none of the negative factors from that. I don't think it's in here. I don't think I put it back in here. I don't think I did. There's some negative things that go with that. I'm trying to find the knife I'm talking about, and I'm pretty sure that it's over here. I have so many knives, I just don't know where all of them are. It gets overwhelming. So, oh, what I do with it, what I do with it, what I do with it. It's probably just laying here somewhere and I can't see it. But at any rate, it's a much better process. That powdered metallurgy, stainless steel, Damascus, where you just have one that's a little bit softer. Not necessarily softer, that's not what I mean. One that has a little bit higher carbon content, just enough to allow it to etch, is really cool. The problem you have is you can't get like those drastic, like black and gold, or black and silver variations in the etch, where you would see like, oh, that's really dark and the swirls are really, really pronounced. It's got to be in here somewhere. We gotta pull this out. Pull out my makeshift drawer, and we'll just go through this box O fixed blades real quick. Sorry, give me a second. There's a lot less chance of delamination. Well, there's no chance of delamination. There it is, sitting right there. There's no chance of delamination on blade. You don't have to worry about differential hardenings, where one steel is harder than the other. That is a heavy box of metal. But you can get the same overall appearance. See what I'm saying? It's the same hardness all around. You don't feel any inconsistencies down the blade. When you run your thumb, I'm going to show you a little test, all right? Like, don't flip out, because people are like, oh my God, you're handling a knife, you're going to cut yourself. I've got 3,000 videos on this channel. I've sharpened probably twice that many knives. Take your thumbnail. Put your thumbnail on the blade. See? Right there? No pressure. Run your thumbnail down. If this was a Damascus steel blade, you would feel the little spots where those two different materials met. You don't feel that on this because technically they're not two different steels. It's one steel. This billet was made this way. Powdered steel laid down in a pattern with the nozzle that deposits steel. Then it's rolled through a hot roller and it makes it one solid piece of steel. Then when you heat treat it, it's all going to be the same hardness. You won't get that with pattern welded Damascus. You will feel the difference between the layers when you run your thumbnail down. Nice little, just a little heads up, little trick that I learned. If you look at the blade, you can see if there's some chips sometimes. But if there's little micro chips, if you take your thumbnail and put zero pressure on that and drag it down the length of the blade, no pressure, just the thumbnail, you're going to feel it hit any tiny little nicks. You can find nicks that you can't even see with a magnifying glass with your thumbnail. It's a good way to see if there's any damage to your blade. You can also feel if there's a burr that you missed, because it will feel different when you're sharpening. But back to the steel, this steel just has that design in it. Each one of those steels has the same composition. One of them just has a tiny bit of extra carbon added to it to allow for the pattern to be seen when you etch it. Lower chromium. It's not even more carbon, it's just lower chromium content. A slightly lower chromium content. The problem with this one is, this isn't like some of the really cool Damascus blades that you'll see where people put it in coffee and do the coffee etch, where you have the dark blacks on one part and then the shiny parts that aren't. You don't get that. Basically what you get is a little bit of it just loses the surface polish, right? It just loses the polish. All you're doing is etching the polish off of one part of the steels. Can you do the same with an AK-47? No, you can't do the same test with an AK-47. I don't think it's a good idea. This is one of the only knives that's super fancy. I will tell you, I don't find this to be something I want anymore. I used to love the Damasteel blades. I wanted to have a full dress knife and Timascus and things like that. I don't find that as attractive. It's one of those things. I did a video here not too long ago, knife trends that I'm over. I just did a revisiting, but one of them was, I don't know how clear this is going to come out. Let me see. I'll drag you forward here a little bit so we can get light on this. And I'll get you a good view of what's going on this blade, okay? So this blade has got a Timascus pivot collar. Now, Timascus is a material that is basically different layers of two different types of titanium that then are welded. They're forge welded together in a vacuum. And what happens is when you heat it up, they get a different color at the same temperature. Now, that's attractive on the pivot collar. It's an attractive look, right? It's an attractive look. But I find it to be a bit garish these days. I don't like, I did at one point, I gotta reconnect this microphone. I used to find it cool, but I think that it's just reached a point where so many people have done too much. When you do too much, it gets overused and then it just doesn't appeal. I find this attractive. Just a pop of it, just a small little bit on that knife. Damasteel is pretty, but you're paying for the process more than you are the steel. But the fact is, it's really good steel though. So it's RWL34 and another steel together. RWL34 is a great, great steel. I do know they do Core now where you can have that outward appearance. People don't always like RWL34. So you get the outer parts and then a centerpiece, a lot like this, where you'll have a center steel that is the centerpiece of it, like ZDP 189 that you can get all the way up to 67 Rockwell. You can score glass with this knife. You can. I tried it. It'll scratch glass. I don't like doing it because I'm not going to do it for you. There's no sharp edges on the back, so you have to use the tip, and then you wind up having to resharpen it because it does screw up your edge. It'll score glass with the edge. Once again, not doing it because I don't want to have to resharpen this again. You get the best of both worlds. You get that exterior. Where did I put it? You get the exterior that has that look that a lot of people like that. And then you get the core, which is your cutting power. You've got that super hard, super good steel in the middle. This would qualify as a core Damascus steel because the center is what matters. So they heat treat the entire thing to what level they would heat treat this. It doesn't matter whether this is soft or hard as long as the edge is. So yeah, Damasteel is crazy expensive, but it's a time-consuming and expensive process. So it does make sense. But yeah, RWL34 is one of my favorite steels. It really is. My Norseman, where is it at? This $1,000 knife. So if you guys don't know, RWL34 is just a type of steel. And oh shit, things have fallen. My stuff has fallen. There it is. RWL34 is an incredible steel. It's a great steel. It's done in this knife right here. You can see RWL34. Well, now you can't see it at all. Oh yeah, you can. RWL34 on that. This is a Grimsmo Norseman. It's one of my favorite knives of all time. Second only to this knife, which is my favorite knife of all time. First and second favorite knives. This is going to go in my pocket. Now, see, this is why I don't take it out of its case. And people have complained, is like, why am I paying $1,000 for this knife? Because they think that RWL34, just because it's older, is a substandard steel. I don't find it to be. The performance levels I get out of this steel are great. That's why this knife gets used a lot, is because of the type of edge it takes. It is insane how sharp you can get this steel. Not sharp, but just how it cuts with this steel. It's a great steel, but people disparage it, say it's a garbage cheap steel. It's not. It's not. But then they gush and blush all over Damasteel. I'm like, you do realize that the blade steel you shit all over is the core. It is the parent composition for Damasteel. It's the shiny part of Damasteel, and then they just do RWL34 basically with a little bit less chromium, a little bit higher carbon content to allow you to etch it. It's a great steel. This is a great knife. Like, I know a lot of people don't like it. There's a reason these knives cost as much as they do, and it's going to go in my pocket today for the first time in a while. I absolutely love carrying this knife. Problem is I use this knife too much, and if I use it so much, then I have to resharpen it all the time, and I can't afford to replace this knife because they're about $1,200. I bought mine used, and I still paid almost $1,000 for it. Before tax, I paid almost $1,000 for it. After tax and shipping, it was about the MSRP. Insane, but it's a great knife. It's not insane. Like I said, it's great. It's a great, great knife. So guys, I do have to get off here. I want to film at least, I've got to get back to filming at least one video a day to get a stockpile in case I have to have surgery on the shoulder. I'm scheduling my MRI today. I do appreciate all of you guys are hanging out there. Last time I looked, there was like 1,200. Let's see, there was like 1,200 views on this, which is not, I've definitely had live feeds that had more. But we're looking at somewhere around 3,000 views on this. It's not bad. Not going to lie, for the price, wish Grimsmo would switch up to super steel. I would argue that RWL34 is a super steel. As a matter of fact, RWL34 was one of the first super steels. It is named after Robert W. Lovelace, one of the world-renowned knife makers. He approached companies to come up with this composition. Todd Begg will tell you it is one of the best steels to work with. It is a super clean steel. You can get a super polish, and very rarely do you run into any inconsistencies. It's one of the first super steels to ever hit the market. And in my opinion, is better than half the new super. I'm over the whole super steel thing. Like, I don't like, I understand the qualities of the MagnaCut. As a matter of fact, I have a knife here in MagnaCut. It's not too bad. I just don't like the knife. Where'd I put it? It's here in this massive conglomeration of knives that are on my workbench. I just don't like the knife. And to tell you the truth, I don't really like MagnaCut. Where did I put that knife? So many knives laying around on the workbench. Things get moved around when I do these live feeds. I do have to clean up the studio and put the green screen and stuff up. I have the Chupacabra from Tactile Knives. I just did a video about it. I'm not a fan of the MagnaCut steel, but that's because it doesn't give me the qualities that I want. I'm much more inclined to want something with S9DV, Crewware. Holy shit, guys, Crewware is good, but Crewware rusts. MagnaCut does not rust very easily. Unfortunately, it's one of those steels that has such a super fine structure to it that it doesn't give me the aggressive carbides I want, which is why I like RWL34, because I do get some of those, but I absolutely love 14C28N. I get those qualities out of it. MagnaCut 65 is awesome, not so much at 60. 60 sucks for MagnaCut. But the MagnaCut it's a decent steel for rust resistance and for a lot of people. My problem with it is I have to give it an aggressive edge. And people are like, so give it an aggressive edge. The problem is I like steels like 14C28N, S90V, and LMAX, because I can take my scratch pattern up higher and still have the aggressive edge. And why that's important is there's a lot less friction on a more polished edge with aggressive carbides, with irregular carbides that might be a little larger at the apex. I'm still able to polish that edge up further. I get less friction, I get less drag, and therefore the edge lasts longer than I do if I put a 600 grit edge on something. And yes, it cuts aggressively, but then there's a lot of friction behind the apex because have you ever like tried to rub 600 grit sandpaper on wood and then you run 1,000 grit sandpaper? There's a lot more drag with 600 grit sandpaper than there is with 1,000 grit. If I have a knife that I can't polish the edge and still have an aggressive set of carbides at the front, there's more drag, therefore more friction, therefore more tear out. There's more chance that that knife's going to get dull faster, even if it's a harder steel. You see what I'm saying? You're giving up something to get something else, and I prefer steels that I can get somewhere in the middle. And a lot of times those steels are a little bit cheaper. 14C28N, S90, well, S90B is not that cheap. But it is, I don't like to compromise on those. And people are like, oh, you just like how it's attractive. I do find the polished edges more attractive, but the fact is that there's a reason behind the polishing of an edge. Something that you can take up to 8,000 grit that still is aggressive. What blade is that? Was the, this is the PM2, the Paramilitary 2 from Spyderco. There's a reason behind it. It's not just how the edge looks when it's polished. It's how the edge performs when it's polished. If I can take something up to 8,000 grit and have it still have an aggressive edge because of the type of carbides, it's going to cut better. It just is. It's like polishing, it's like having a finer polished blade. This is a fairly fine satin on this blade. You can see the reflection of the camera in it, right? You can almost make out my face. This knife slides through material. As much as I like a stone wash, it doesn't do that. Stone wash adds friction. There's more open pores on the steel. This, for as good as this knife is, how well it cuts, I wish it wasn't the layered Damascus. I wish this was just a ZDP 189 blade. I like everything about it. I like the aesthetics, but let me see. Can you guys hear that? That's because when they etched this in acid, it now has small little areas. It doesn't cut as well because those little areas aren't as smooth. They're not polished. So therefore, they add drag. Now, my Norseman has got those in the blade, but they're very, very fine milling patterns. And they don't, they're just, they're basically vestigial. You can't really feel them, maybe a little bit, but the fact is they're not rough. They're at the same polish, you can here, let's see. They're at the same polish level as the blade. So it just skates across the tops of it. With this having been etched, it is not as smooth. You can actually feel the bit of grittiness on that. So therefore this knife has more friction when cutting. It's almost imperceptible, but it is there. It is a macro version of what I was talking about with the scratch pattern on the edge. This is coming from somebody that has sharpened thousands of knives, and this is just what I've found personally. Some people would argue with me, but to tell you the truth, I've sharpened knives that I made, I've sharpened knives for customers, I sharpened knives for knife makers and companies. Freehand sharpening, it was an option that was added. I kind of know what I'm talking about, and it's over a lifetime of having used knives and finding what I find to be best. And therefore, I gravitate to steels that give me the option that I want, like Elmax. Elmax at 8,000 grit is as aggressive. That's actually, Elmax at 8,000 grit is much more aggressive at the edge than MagnaCut. It's as aggressive as MagnaCut is at 1,000 grit, but this is 8,000 grit. A lot less friction, and then when you get this super thin behind the edge, it's just the perfect. This is a dangerously sharp knife. So, guys, it was always a fixed blade steel. First, it was like cited basically stainless steel crewware. Everybody put in folders. I like crewware, but I don't get. Everybody says that it's basically like stainless steel crewware. I disagree. I have a couple knives in crewware now, and crewware at 5,000 to 8,000 grit is still aggressive. It's not. Comparing, when you, it's like the stainless version of this, then it's not that. You may as well be comparing apples and watermelons, or more accurately, apples and spare tires. That's how far removed if you take a steel and say it's basically the stainless steel version of this, you sound ridiculous because it's as far removed, they are as far removed from each other as you can get. And it doesn't take much of a composition change to change the properties of a steel. You want a case in point of that? Take a look at, and I say it all the time, and it's not a lie, S90V, I'm sorry, M390, 204P, and 20CV, right? They are very, very similar. They are analogs of each other. And I've said for years that it's super, super close. It's like if you make Nestle Toll House cookies and you use butter, but your friend uses Crisco, you're gonna get something that is almost exactly the same. I tested, I like the misdemeanor, but I'll talk about that in a second. So you're basically getting the same cookie. You're not gonna find much of a difference, but there is a difference. You're going to be able to find a difference. The consistency of the cookie, the way it feels, the mouthfeel of the cookie. It may taste exactly the same, but there's going to be differences. For as close as those steels are, that minor change in composition gives you a different steel. Now, they're heat treated the same. They're basically made the same, but there's some minor inconsistencies between the recipe. And it does not take much. So if you get a knife in 20CV that's at 65, like I used to make it, and you get M390 at 65, when you sharpen those knives, you're going to feel a difference. The process is slightly different. I think I think it's CPM. Is it CPM? At any rate, 20CV is on like Gen 2 or 3 of their powdered metallurgy. Bowler Odelholm is on like Gen 5 or 7, between 5 and 7. I think it was 5. I think they might be on Generation 7 on how they do the powdered metallurgy. So you have a difference in the process, which is going to make a difference. And you have a minor difference in the composition, which is going to make a difference. Case in point, everybody says that ARPM9, even though I know it's not powdered, everybody's like, oh, it's basically 9CR. And I'm like, it is not. It's not. ARPM9 steel does not do the same things that 9CR does. Are they similar in composition? Yes, but they're different, and they're different enough that you get a different feel when you're using that steel. The edge on ARPM9 lasts longer than 9CR. It strops better than 9CR, and it sharpens better than 9CR, and the edge feels different. I like 20CV a bit better. I found it seems like it always heat treated better for some reason. I will tell you it's probably because of the process. You can get M390 to the same hardness that I used to do for 20CV, right? And I've had it at the same hardness. However, when you do 20CV, because it is powdered a little bit differently, it's not as fine, you're gonna find that it feels like your edge is better on 20CV, which is why I made my knives in 20CV. I got the best possible combination of all the elements I wanted. I wanted impact resistant, I wanted wear resistance, and I wanted edge retention, and I wanted rust corrosion prevention, corrosion resistance. I got all of that in 20CV. The way I did 20CV, you didn't get quite the rust resistance you got because I was taking it up to 64, 65, sometimes 66 hardness, because you're absorbing a lot more of the chromium into the carbide process and making carbides. So it's not as rust resistant at the surface because there's less chromium oxide that forms at the surface to prevent the rust, but you still got pretty good rust resistance. You still got amazing edge retention. You got really good impact resistance and toughness. And the edge it took was just insane. Guys, it's been 140 minutes. I have got to do some other stuff for the channel today. I got to set my green screen and start filming. It's almost 1 o'clock here. My wife's going to be home soon. I've got to get off of here. I love you all. I will see you next time. Check out the entire channel for other videos. Check out the video that I put up yesterday. It's a pretty good one. It's about this knife right here, the Iron Fly YOLO, which I think is probably the best budget knife this year so far. I really do think it is. I think this company, between this company, which is part of Kunwu, I think they are really changing the knife game for the level of quality you get for the price point. So guys, I got to get out of here and clean this stuff up. I love you all. I'll talk to you later.